Let me know thee, O Lord, who knowest me, let me know thee, as I am known. Power of my soul, enter into it, and fit it for thee, that thou mayest have and hold it without spot or wrinkle. This is my hope, therefore do I speak, and in this hope do I rejoice, when I rejoice healthfully. Other things of this life are the less to be sorrowed for, the more they are sorrowed for, and the more to be sorrowed for, the less men sorrow for them. For behold, thou lovest the truth, and he that doth it, cometh to the light. This would I do in my heart before thee in confession, and in my writing, before many witnesses. And from thee, O Lord, unto whose eyes the abyss of man's conscience is naked, what could be hidden in me though I would not confess it? For I should hide thee from me, not me from thee. But now, for that my groaning is witness, that I am displeased with myself, thou shinest out, and art pleasing, and beloved, and longed for, that I may be ashamed of myself, and renounce myself, and choose thee, and neither please thee nor myself, but in thee. To thee therefore, O Lord, am I open, whatever I am, and with what fruit I confess unto thee, I have said. Nor do I it with words and sounds of the flesh, but with the words of my soul, and the cry of the thought which thy ear knoweth. For when I am evil, then to confess to thee is nothing else than to be displeased with myself, but when holy, nothing else than not to ascribe it to myself, because thou, O Lord, blessest the godly, but first thou justifieth him when ungodly. My confession then, O my God, in thy sight, is made silently, and not silently. For in sound, it is silent, in affection, it cries aloud. For neither do I utter anything right unto men, which thou hast not before heard from me, nor dost thou hear any such thing from me, which thou hast not first said unto me. What then have I to do with men, that they should hear my confessions, as if they could heal all my infirmities, a race, curious to know the lives of others, slothful to amend their own? Why seek they to hear from me what I am, who will not hear from thee what themselves are? And how know they, when from myself they hear of myself, whether I say true, seeing no man knows what is in man, but the spirit of man which is in him? But if they hear from thee of themselves, they cannot say, The Lord lieth. For what is it to hear from thee of themselves, but to know themselves? And who knoweth and saith, It is false, unless himself lieth? But because charity believeth all things, that is, among those whom knitting unto itself it mocketh one, I also, O Lord, will in such wise confess unto thee, that men may hear, to whom I cannot demonstrate whether I confess truly, yet they believe me, whose ears charity openeth unto me. But do thou, my inmost physician, make plain unto me what fruit I may reap by doing it. For the confessions of my past sins, which thou hast forgiven and covered, that thou mightest bless me in thee, changing my soul by faith in thy sacrament, when read and heard, stir up the heart, that it sleep not in despair and say I cannot, but awaken the love of thy mercy and the sweetness of thy grace, whereby whoso is weak, is strong, when by it he became conscious of his own weakness. And the good delight to hear of the past evils of such as are now freed from them, not because they are evils, but because they have been and are not. With what fruit then, O Lord my God, to whom my conscience daily confesseth, trusting more in the hope of thy mercy than in her own innocency, with what fruit, I pray, do I by this book confess to men also in thy presence what I now am, not what I have been? For that other fruit I have seen and spoken of. But what I now am, at the very time of making these confessions, divers desire to know, who have or have not known me, who have heard from me or of me, but their ear is not at my heart where I am, whatever I am. They wish then to hear me confess what I am within, whither neither their eye, nor ear, nor understanding can reach. They wish it, as ready to believe, but will they know? For charity, whereby they are good, telleth them that in my confessions I lie not, and she in them believeth me. But for what fruit would they hear this? Do they desire to joy with me, when they hear how near, by thy gift, I approach unto thee? And to pray for me, when they shall hear how much I am held back by my own weight? To such will I discover myself. For it is no mean fruit, O Lord my God, that by many thanks should be given to thee on our behalf, and thou be by many entreated for us. Let the brotherly mind love in me what thou teachest is to be loved, and lament in me what thou teachest is to be lamented. Let a brotherly, not a stranger, mind, not that of the strange children, whose mouth talketh of vanity, and their right hand is a right hand of iniquity, but that brotherly mind which when it approveth, rejoiceth for me, and when it disapproveth me, is sorry for me, because whether it approveth or disapproveth, it loveth me. To such will I discover myself, they will breathe freely at my good deeds, sigh for my ill. My good deeds are thine appointments, and thy gifts, my evil ones are my offences, and thy judgments. Let them breathe freely at the one, sigh at the other, and let hymns and weeping go up into thy sight, out of the hearts of my brethren, thy censors. And do thou, O Lord, be pleased with the incense of thy holy temple, have mercy upon me according to thy great mercy for thine own name's sake, and no ways forsaking what thou hast begun, perfect my imperfections. This is the fruit of my confessions of what I am, not of what I have been, to confess this, not before thee only, in a secret exultation with trembling, and a secret sorrow with hope, but in the ears also of the believing sons of men, sharers of my joy, and partners in my mortality, my fellow citizens, and fellow pilgrims, who are gone before, or are to follow on, companions of my way. These are thy servants, my brethren, whom thou willest to be thy sons, my masters, whom thou commandest me to serve, if I would live with thee, of thee. But this thy word were little did it only command by speaking, and not go before in performing. This then I do in deed and word, this I do under thy wings, in over great peril, were not my soul subdued unto thee under thy wings, and my infirmity known unto thee. I am a little one, but my Father ever liveth, and my guardian is sufficient for me. For he is the same who begot me, and defends me, and thou thyself art all my good, thou, Almighty, who are with me, yea, before I am with thee. To such then whom thou commandest me to serve will I discover, not what I have been, but what I now am and what I yet am. But neither do I judge myself. Thus therefore I would be heard. For thou, Lord, dost judge me, because, although no man knoweth the things of a man, but the spirit of a man which is in him, yet is there something of man, which neither the spirit of man that is in him, itself knoweth. But thou, Lord, knowest all of him, who hast made him. Yet I, though in thy sight I despise myself, and account myself dust and ashes, yet know I something of thee, which I know not of myself. And truly, now we see through a glass darkly, not face to face as yet. So long therefore as I be absent from thee, I am more present with myself than with thee, and yet know I thee that thou art in no ways passible. But I, what temptations I can resist, what I cannot, I know not. And there is hope, because thou art faithful, who wilt not suffer us to be tempted above that we are able, but wilt with the temptation also make a way to escape, that we may be able to bear it. I will confess then what I know of myself, I will confess also what I know not of myself. And that because what I do know of myself, I know by thy shining upon me, and what I know not of myself, so long know I not it, until my darkness be made as the noonday in thy countenance. Not with doubting, but with assured consciousness, do I love thee, Lord. Thou hast stricken my heart with thy word, and I love thee. Yea, also heaven, and earth, and all that therein is, behold, on every side they bid me love thee, nor cease to say so unto all, that they may be without excuse. But more deeply wilt thou have mercy on whom thou wilt have mercy, and wilt have compassion on whom thou hast had compassion, else in deaf ears do the heaven and the earth speak thy praises. But what do I love, when I love thee? Not beauty of bodies, nor the fair harmony of time, nor the brightness of the light, so gladsome to our eyes, nor sweet melodies of varied songs, nor the fragrant smell of flowers, and ointments, and spices, not manna and honey, not limbs acceptable to embracements of flesh. None of these I love, when I love my God, and yet I love a kind of light, and melody, and fragrance, and meat, and embracement when I love my God, the light, melody, fragrance, meat, embracement of my inner man, where there shineth unto my soul what space cannot contain, and there soundeth what time beareth not away, and there smelleth what breathing disperseth not, and there tasteth what eating diminisheth not, and there clingeth what satiety divorceth not. This is it which I love when I love my God. And what is this? I asked the earth, and it answered me, I am not he, and whatsoever are in it confess the same. I asked the sea and the deeps, and the living creeping things, and they answered, We are not thy God, seek above us. I asked the moving air, and the whole air with his inhabitants answered, Anaximenes was deceived, I am not God. I asked the heavens, sun, moon, stars, nor, say they, are we the God whom thou seekest? And I replied unto all the things which encompass the door of my flesh, Ye have told me of my God, that ye are not he, tell me something of him. And they cried out with a loud voice, He made us. My questioning them was my thoughts on them, and their form of beauty gave the answer. And I turned myself unto myself, and said to myself, Who art thou? And I answered, A man. And behold, in me there present themselves to me soul and body, one without, the other within. By which of these ought I to seek my God? I had sought him in the body from earth to heaven, so far as I could send messengers, the beams of mine eyes. But the better is the inner, for to it is presiding and judging. All the bodily messengers reported the answers of heaven and earth, and all things therein, who said, We are not God, but he made us. These things did my inner man know by the ministry of the outer. I the inner knew them, I, the mind, through the senses of my body. I asked the whole frame of the world about my God, and it answered me, I am not he, but he made me. Is not this corporeal figure apparent to all whose senses are perfect? Why then speaks it not the same to all? Animals small and great see it, but they cannot ask it, because no reason is set over their senses to judge on what they report. But men can ask, so that the invisible things of God are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, but by love of them, they are made subject unto them, and subjects cannot judge. Nor yet do the creatures answer such as ask, unless they can judge, nor yet do they change their voice, i.e., their appearance. If one man only sees, another seeing asks, so as to appear one way to this man, another way to that, but appearing the same way to both, it is dumb to this, speaks to that, yea rather it speaks to all, but they only understand, who compare its voice received from without, with the truth within. For truth saith unto me, Neither heaven, nor earth, nor any other body is thy God. This, their very nature saith to him that seeth them, They are a mass is less in a part thereof than in the whole. Now to thee I speak, O my soul, thou art my better part, for thou quickenest the mass of my body, giving it life, which no body can give to a body, but thy God is even unto thee the life of thy life. What then do I love, when I love my God? Who is he above the head of my soul? By my very soul will I ascend to him. I will pass beyond that power whereby I am united to my body, and fill its whole frame with life. Nor can I by that power find my God, for so horse and mule that have no understanding might find him, seeing it is the same power, whereby even their bodies live. But another power there is, not that only whereby I animate, but that too whereby I imbue with sense my flesh, which the Lord hath framed for me, commanding the eye not to hear, and the ear not to see, but the eye, that through it I should see, and the ear, that through it I should hear, and to the other senses severally, what is to each their own peculiar seats and offices, which, being divers, I the one mind, do through them enact. I will pass beyond this power of mine also, for this also have the horse and mule, for they also perceive through the body. I will pass then beyond this power of my nature also, rising by degrees unto him who made me. And I come to the fields and spacious palaces of my memory, where are the treasures of innumerable images, brought into it from things of all sorts perceived by the senses. There is stored up, whatsoever besides we think, either by enlarging or diminishing, or any other way varying those things which the sense hath come to, and whatever else hath been committed and laid up, which forgetfulness hath not yet swallowed up and buried. When I enter there, I require what I will to be brought forth, and something instantly comes. Others must be longer sought after, which are fetched, as it were, out of some inner receptacle, others rush out in troops, and while one thing is desired and required, they start forth, as who should say, Is it perchance I? These I drive away with the hand of my heart, from the face of my remembrance, until what I wish for be unveiled, and appear in sight, out of its secret place. Other things come up readily, in unbroken order, as they are called for, those in front making way for the following, and as they make way, they are hidden from sight, ready to come when I will. All which takes place when I repeat a thing by heart. There are all things preserved distinctly and under general heads, each having entered by its own avenue, as light, and all colors and forms of bodies by the eyes, by the ears all sorts of sounds, all smells by the avenue of the nostrils, all tastes by the mouth, and by the sensation of the whole body, what is hard or soft, hot or cold, or rugged, heavy or light, either outwardly or inwardly to the body. All these doth that great harbour of the memory receive in her numberless secret and inexpressible windings, to be forthcoming, and brought out at need, each entering in by his own gate, and there laid up. Nor yet do the things themselves enter in, only the images of the things perceived are there in readiness, for thought to recall. Which images, how they are formed, who can tell, though it doth plainly appear by which sense each hath been brought in and stored up? For even while I dwell in darkness and silence, in my memory I can produce colors, if I will, and discern betwixt black and white, and what others I will, nor yet do sounds break in and disturb the image drawn in by my eyes, which I am reviewing, though they also are there, lying dormant, and laid up, as it were, apart. For these two I call for, and forthwith they appear. And though my tongue be still, and my throat mute, so can I sing as much as I will, nor do those images of colors, which notwithstanding be there, intrude themselves and interrupt, when another store is called for, which flowed in by the ears. So the other things, piled in and up by the other senses, I recall at my pleasure. Yea, I discern the breath of lilies from violets, though smelling nothing, and I prefer honey to sweet wine, smooth before rugged, at the time neither tasting nor handling, but remembering only. These things do I within, in that vast court of my memory. For there are present with me, heaven, earth, sea, and whatever I could think on therein, besides what I have forgotten. There also meet I with myself, and recall myself, and when, where, and what I have done, and under what feelings. There be all which I remember, either on my own experience, or others' credit. Out of the same store do I myself with the past continually combine fresh and fresh likenesses of things which I have experienced, or, from what I have experienced, have believed, and thence again infer future actions, events and hopes, and all these again I reflect on, as present. I will do this or that, say I to myself, in that great receptacle of my mind, stored with the images of things so many and so great, and this or that will follow. Oh, that this or that might be! God avert this or that! So speak I to myself, and when I speak, the images of all I speak of are present, out of the same treasury of memory, nor would I speak of any thereof, were the images wanting. Great is this force of memory, excessive great, O my God, a large and boundless chamber. Whoever sounded the bottom thereof? Yet is this a power of mine, and belongs unto my nature, nor do I myself comprehend all that I am. Therefore is the mind too strait to contain itself. And where should that be, which it containeth not of itself? Is it without it, and not within? How then doth it not comprehend itself? A wonderful admiration surprises me, amazement seizes me upon this. And men go abroad to admire the heights of mountains, the mighty billows of the sea, the broad tides of rivers, the compass of the ocean, and the circuits of the stars, and pass themselves by, nor wonder that when I spake of all these things, I did not see them with mine eyes, yet could not have spoken of them, unless I then actually saw the mountains, billows, rivers, stars which I had seen, and that ocean which I believed to be, inwardly in my memory, and that, with the same vast spaces between, as if I saw them abroad. Yet did not I by seeing draw them into myself, when with mine eyes I beheld them, nor are they themselves with me, but their images only. And I know by what sense of the body each was impressed upon me. Yet not these alone does the unmeasurable capacity of my memory retain. Here also is all, learnt of the liberal sciences and as yet unforgotten, removed as it were to some inner place, which is yet no place, nor are they the images thereof, but the things themselves. For, what is literature, what the art of disputing, how many kinds of questions there be, whatsoever of these I know, in such manner exists in my memory, as that I have not taken in the image, and left out the thing, or that it should have sounded and passed away like a voice fixed on the ear by that impress, whereby it might be recalled, as if it sounded, when it no longer sounded, or as a smell while it passes and evaporates into air affects the sense of smell, whence it conveys into the memory an image of itself, which remembering we renew, or as meat, which verily in the belly hath now no taste, and yet in the memory still in a manner tasteth, or as anything which the body by touch perceiveth, and which when removed from us, the memory still conceives. For those things are not transmitted into the memory, but their images only are with an admirable swiftness caught up, and stored as it were in wondrous cabinets, and thence wonderfully by the act of remembering, brought forth. But now when I hear that there be three kinds of questions, whether the thing be? What it is? Of what kind it is. I do indeed hold the images of the sounds of which those words be composed, and that those sounds, with a noise pass through the air, and now are not. But the things themselves which are signified by those sounds, I never reached with any sense of my body, nor ever discern them otherwise than in my mind, yet in my memory have I laid up not their images, but themselves. Which how they entered into me, let them say if they can, for I have gone over all the avenues of my flesh, but cannot find by which they entered. For the eyes say, if those images were colored, we reported of them. The ears say, if they sound, we gave knowledge of them. The nostrils say, if they smell, they passed by us. The taste says, unless they have a savor, ask me not. The touch says, if it have not size, I handled it not, if I handled it not, I gave no notice of it. Whence and how entered these things into my memory? I know not how. For when I learned them, I gave not credit to another man's mind, but recognized them in mine, and approving them for true, I commended them to it, laying them up as it were, whence I might bring them forth when I willed. In my heart then they were, even before I learned them, but in my memory they were not. Where then? Or wherefore, when they were spoken, did I acknowledge them, and said, so is it is true, unless that they were already in the memory, but so thrown back and buried as it were in deeper recesses, that had not the suggestion of another drawn them forth I had perchance been unable to conceive of them? Wherefore we find, that to learn these things whereof we imbibe not the images by our senses, but perceive within by themselves, without images, as they are, is nothing else, but by conception, to receive, and by marking to take heed that those things which the memory did before contain at random and unarranged, be laid up at hand as it were in that same memory where before they lay unknown, scattered and neglected, and so readily occur to the mind familiarized to them. And how many things of this kind does my memory bear which have been already found out, and as I said, placed as it were at hand, which we are said to have learned and come to know, which were I for some short space of time to cease to call to mind, they are again so buried, and glide back, as it were, into the deeper recesses, that they must again, as if new, be thought out thence, for other abode they have none, but they must be drawn together again, that they may be known, that is to say, they must as it were be collected together from their dispersion, whence the word cogitation is derived. For cogo, collect, and cogito, recollect, have the same relation to each other as ego and agito, facio, and factito. But the mind hath appropriated to itself this word, cogitation, so that, not what is collected anyhow, but what is recollected, i.e., brought together, in the mind, is properly said to be cogitated, or thought upon. The memory containeth also reasons and laws innumerable of numbers and dimensions, none of which hath any bodily sense impressed, seeing they have neither color, nor sound, nor taste, nor smell, nor touch. I have heard the sound of the words whereby when discussed they are denoted, but the sounds are other than the things. For the sounds are other in Greek than in Latin, but the things are neither Greek, nor Latin, nor any other language. I have seen the lines of architects, the very finest, like a spider's thread, but those are still different, they are not the images of those lines which the eye of flesh showed me. He knoweth them, whosoever without any conception whatsoever of a body, recognizes them within himself. I have perceived also the numbers of the things with which we number all the senses of my body, but those numbers wherewith we number are different, nor are they the images of these, and therefore they indeed are. Let him who seeth them not, deride me for saying these things, and I will pity him, while he derides me. All these things I remember, and how I learnt them I remember. Many things also most falsely objected against them have I heard, and remember, which though they be false, yet is it not false that I remember them, and I remember also that I have discerned betwixt those truths and these falsehoods objected to them. And I perceive that the present discerning of these things is different from remembering that I oftentimes discerned them, when I often thought upon them. I both remember then to have often understood these things, and what I now discern and understand, I lay up in my memory, that hereafter I may remember that I understand it now. So that I remember also to have remembered, as if hereafter I shall call to remembrance, that I have now been able to remember these things, by the force of memory shall I call it to remembrance. The same memory contains also the affections of my mind, not in the same manner that my mind itself contains them, when it feels them, but far otherwise, according to a power of its own. For without rejoicing I remember myself to have joyed, and without sorrow do I recollect my past sorrow. And that I once feared, I review without fear, and without desire call to mind a past desire. Sometimes, on the contrary, with joy do I remember my forepast sorrow, and with sorrow, joy. Which is not wonderful, as to the body, for mind is one thing, body another. If I therefore with joy remember some past pain of body, it is not so wonderful. But now seeing this very memory itself is mind, for when we give a thing in charge, to be kept in memory, we say, see that you keep it in mind, and when we forget, we say, it did not come to my mind, and it slipped out of my mind, calling the memory itself the mind. This being so, how is it that when with joy I remember my past sorrow, the mind hath joy, the memory hath sorrow, the mind upon the joyfulness which is in it, is joyful, yet the memory upon the sadness which is in it, is not sad? Does the memory perchance not belong to the mind? Who will say so? The memory then is, as it were, the belly of the mind, and joy and sadness, like sweet and bitter food, which, when committed to the memory, are as it were passed into the belly, where they may be stowed, but cannot taste. Ridiculous it is to imagine these to be alike, and yet are they not utterly unlike? But, behold, out of my memory I bring it, when I say there be 4 perturbations of the mind, desire, joy, fear, sorrow, and whatsoever I can dispute thereon, by dividing each into its subordinate species, and by defining it, in my memory find I what to say, and thence do I bring it, yet am I not disturbed by any of these perturbations, when by calling them to mind, I remember them, yea, and before I recalled and brought them back, they were there, and therefore could they, by recollection, then be brought. Perchance, then, as meat is by chewing the cud brought up out of the belly, so by recollection these out of the memory. Why then does not the disputer, thus recollecting, taste in the mouth of his musing the sweetness of joy, or the bitterness of sorrow? Is the comparison unlike in this, because not in all respects like? For who would willingly speak thereof, if so oft as we name grief or fear, we should be compelled to be sad or fearful? And yet could we not speak of them, did we not find in our memory, not only the sounds of the names according to the images impressed by the senses of the body, but notions of the very things themselves which we never received by any avenue of the body, but which the mind itself perceiving by the experience of its own passions, committed to the memory, or the memory of itself retained, without being committed unto it? But whether by images or no, who can readily say? Thus, I name a stone, I name the sun, the things themselves not being present to my senses, but their images to my memory. I name a bodily pain, yet it is not present with me, when nothing aches, yet unless its image were present to my memory, I should not know what to say thereof, nor in discoursing discern pain from pleasure. I name bodily health, being sound in body, the thing itself is present with me, yet, unless its image also were present in my memory, I could by no means recall what the sound of this name should signify. Nor would the sick, when health were named, recognize what were spoken, unless the same image were by the force of memory retained, although the thing itself were absent from the body. I name numbers whereby we number, and not their images, but themselves are present in my memory. I name the image of the sun, and that image is present in my memory. For I recall not the image of its image, but the image itself is present to me, calling it to mind. I name memory, and I recognize what I name. And where do I recognize it, but in the memory itself? Is it also present to itself by its image, and not by itself? What, when I name forgetfulness, and withal recognize what I name? When should I recognize it? Did I not remember it? I speak not of the sound of the name, but of the thing which it signifies, which if I had forgotten, I could not recognize what that sound signifies. When then I remember memory, memory itself is, through itself, present with itself, but when I remember forgetfulness, there are present both memory and forgetfulness, memory whereby I remember, forgetfulness which I remember. But what is forgetfulness, but the privation of memory? How then is it present that I remember it, since when present I cannot remember? But if what we remember we hold it in memory, yet, unless we did remember forgetfulness, we could never at the hearing of the name recognize the thing thereby signified, then forgetfulness is retained by memory. present then it is, that we forget not, and being so, we forget. It is to be understood from this that forgetfulness when we remember it, is not present to the memory by itself but by its image, because if it were present by itself, it would not cause us to remember, but to forget. Who now shall search out this? Who shall comprehend how it is? Lord, I, truly, toil therein, yea, and toil in myself. I am become a heavy soil requiring over much sweat of the brow. For we are not now searching out the regions of heaven, or measuring the distances of the stars, or inquiring the balancings of the earth. It is I myself who remember, I the mind. It is not so wonderful, if what I myself am not, be far from me. But what is nearer to me than myself? And lo, the force of mine own memory is not understood by me, though I cannot so much as name myself without it. For what shall I say, when it is clear to me that I remember forgetfulness? Shall I say that that is not in my memory, which I remember? Or shall I say that forgetfulness is for this purpose in my memory, that I might not forget? Both were most absurd. What third way is there? How can I say that the image of forgetfulness is retained by my memory, not forgetfulness itself, when I remember it? How could I say this either, seeing that when the image of anything is impressed on the memory, the thing itself must needs be first present, whence that image may be impressed? For thus do I remember Carthage, thus all places where I have been, thus men's faces whom I have seen, and things reported by the other senses, thus the health or sickness of the body. For when these things were present, my memory received from them images, which being present with me, I might look on and bring back in my mind, when I remembered them in their absence. If then this forgetfulness is retained in the memory through its image, not through itself, then plainly itself was once present, that its image might be taken. But when it was present, how did it write its image in the memory, seeing that forgetfulness by its presence effaces even what it finds already noted? And yet, in whatever way, although that way be past conceiving and explaining, yet certain am I that I remember forgetfulness itself also, whereby what we remember is effaced. Great is the power of memory, a fearful thing, O my God, a deep and boundless manifoldness, and this thing is the mind, and this am I myself. What am I then, O my God? What nature am I? A life various and manifold, and exceeding immense. Behold, in the plains, and caves, and caverns of my memory, innumerable and innumerably full of innumerable kinds of things, either through images, as all bodies, or by actual presence, as the arts, or by certain notions or impressions, as the affections of the mind, which, even when the mind doth not feel, the memory retaineth, while yet whatsoever is in the memory is also in the mind. Over all these do I run, I fly, I dive on this side and on that, as far as I can, and there is no end. So great is the force of memory, so great the force of life, even in the mortal life of man. What shall I do then, O thou my true life, my God? I will pass even beyond this power of mine which is called memory, yea, I will pass beyond it, that I may approach unto thee, O sweet light. What sayest thou to me? See, I am mounting up through my mind towards thee who abidest above me. Yea, I now will pass beyond this power of mine which is called memory, desirous to arrive at thee, whence thou mayest be arrived at, and to cleave unto thee, whence one may cleave unto thee. For even beasts and birds have memory, else could they not return to their dens and nests, nor many other things they are used unto, nor indeed could they be used to anything, but by memory. I will pass then beyond memory also, that I may arrive at him who hath separated me from the four-footed beasts and made me wiser than the fowls of the air. I will pass beyond memory also, and where shall I find thee, thou truly good and certain sweetness? And where shall I find thee? If I find thee without my memory, then do I not retain thee in my memory? And how shall I find thee, if I remember thee not? For the woman that had lost her groat, and sought it with a light, unless she had remembered it, she had never found it. For when it was found, whence should she know whether it were the same, unless she remembered it? I remember to have sought and found many a thing, and this I thereby know, that when I was seeking any of them, and was asked, Is this it? Is that it? So long said I no, until that were offered me which I sought. Which had I not remembered, whatever it were, though it were offered me, yet should I not find it, because I could not recognize it. And so it ever is, when we seek and find any lost thing. Notwithstanding, when anything is by chance lost from the sight, not from the memory, as any visible body, yet its image is still retained within, and it is sought until it be restored to sight, and when it is found, it is recognized by the image which is within, nor do we say that we have found what was lost, unless we recognize it, nor can we recognize it, unless we remember it. But this was lost to the eyes, but retained in the memory. But what when the memory itself loses anything, as falls out when we forget and seek that we may recollect? Where in the end do we search, but in the memory itself? And there, if one thing be perchance offered instead of another, we reject it, until what we seek meets us, and when it doth, we say, This is it, which we should not unless we recognized it, nor recognize it unless we remembered it. Certainly then we had forgotten it. Or, had not the whole escaped us, but by the part whereof we had hold, was the lost part sought for, in that the memory felt that it did not carry on together all which it was wont, and maimed, as it were, by the curtailment of its ancient habit, demanded the restoration of what it missed? For instance, if we see or think of some one known to us, and having forgotten his name, try to recover it, whatever else occurs, connects itself not therewith, because it was not wont to be thought upon together with him, and therefore is rejected, until that present itself, whereon the knowledge reposes equably as its wanted object. And whence does that present itself, but out of the memory itself? For even when we recognize it, on being reminded by another, it is thence it comes. For we do not believe it as something new, but, upon recollection, allow what was named to be right. But were it utterly blotted out of the mind, we should not remember it, even when reminded. For we have not as yet utterly forgotten that, which we remember ourselves to have forgotten. What then we have utterly forgotten, though lost, we cannot even seek after. How then do I seek thee, O Lord? For when I seek thee, my God, I seek a happy life. I will seek thee, that my soul may live. For my body liveth by my soul, and my soul by thee. How then do I seek a happy life, seeing I have it not, until I can say, where I ought to say it, it is enough? How seek I it? By remembrance, as though I had forgotten it, remembering that I had forgotten it? Or, desiring to learn it as a thing unknown, either never having known, or so forgotten it, as not even to remember that I had forgotten it? Is not a happy life what all will, and no one altogether wills it not? Where have they known it, that they so will it? Where seen it, that they so love it? Truly we have it, how, I know not. Yea, there is another way, wherein when one hath it, then is he happy, and there are, who are blessed, in hope. These have it in a lower kind, than they who have it in very deed, yet are they better off than such as are happy neither in deed nor in hope. Yet even these, had they it not in some sort, would not so will to be happy, which that they do will, is most certain. They have known it then, I know not how, and so have it by some sort of knowledge, what, I know not, and am perplexed whether it be in the memory, which if it be, then we have been happy once, whether all severally, or in that man who first sinned, in whom also we all died, and from whom we are all born with misery, I now inquire not, but only, whether the happy life be in the memory? For neither should we love it, did we not know it. We hear the name, and we all confess that we desire the thing, for we are not delighted with the mere sound. For when a Greek hears it in Latin, he is not delighted, not knowing what is spoken, but we Latins are delighted, as would he too, if he heard it in Greek, because the thing itself is neither Greek nor Latin, which Greeks and Latins, and men of all other tongues, long for so earnestly. Known therefore it is to all, for they with one voice be asked, would they be happy? They would answer without doubt, they would. And this could not be, unless the thing itself whereof it is the name were retained in their memory. But is it so, as one remembers Carthage who hath seen it? No. For a happy life is not seen with the eye, because it is not a body. As we remember numbers then? No. For these, he that hath in his knowledge, seeks not further to attain unto, but a happy life we have in our knowledge, and therefore love it, and yet still desire to attain it, that we may be happy. As we remember eloquence then? No. For although upon hearing this name also, some call to mind the thing, who still are not yet eloquent, and many who desire to be so, whence it appears that it is in their knowledge, yet these have by their bodily senses observed others to be eloquent, and been delighted, and desire to be the like, though indeed they would not be delighted but for some inward knowledge thereof, nor wish to be the like, unless they were thus delighted. Whereas a happy life, we do by no bodily sense experience in others. As then we remember joy? Perchance, for my joy I remember, even when sad, as a happy life, when unhappy, nor did I ever with bodily sense see, hear, smell, taste, or touch my joy, but I experienced it in my mind, when I rejoiced, and the knowledge of it clave to my memory, so that I can recall it with disgust sometimes, at others with longing, according to the nature of the things, wherein I remember myself to have joyed. For even from foul things have I been immersed in a sort of joy, which now recalling, I detest and execrate, other whiles in good and honest things, which I recall with longing, although perchance no longer present, and therefore with sadness I recall former joy. Where then and when did I experience my happy life, that I should remember, and love, and long for it? Nor is it I alone, or some few besides, but we all would fain be happy, which, unless by some certain knowledge we knew, we should not with so certain a will desire. But how is this, that if two men be asked whether they would go to the wars, one, perchance, would answer that he would, the other, that he would not, but if they were asked whether they would be happy, both would instantly without any doubting say they would, and for no other reason would the one go to the wars, and the other not, but to be happy? Is it perchance that as one looks for his joy in this thing, another in that, all agree in their desire of being happy, as they would, if they were asked, that they wish to have joy, and this joy they call a happy life? Although then one obtains this joy by one means, another by another, all have one end, which they strive to attain, namely, joy. Which being a thing which all must say they have experienced, it is therefore found in the memory, and recognized whenever the name of a happy life is mentioned. Far be it, Lord, far be it from the heart of thy servant who here confesseth unto thee, far be it, that, be the joy what it may, I should therefore think myself happy. For there is a joy which is not given to the ungodly, but to those who love thee for thine own sake, whose joy thou thyself art. And this is the happy life, to rejoice to thee, of thee, for thee, this is it, and there is no other. For they who think there is another, pursue some other and not the true joy. Yet is not their will turned away from some semblance of joy. It is not certain then that all wish to be happy, inasmuch as they who wish not to joy in thee, which is the only happy life, do not truly desire the happy life. Or do all men desire this, but because the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh, that they cannot do what they would, they fall upon that which they can, and are content therewith, because, what they are not able to do, they do not will so strongly as would suffice to make them able? For I ask anyone, had he rather joy in truth, or in falsehood? They will as little hesitate to say in the truth, as to say that they desire to be happy, for a happy life is joy in the truth, for this is a joying in thee, who art the truth, O God my light, health of my countenance, my God. This is the happy life which all desire, this life which alone is happy, all desire, to joy in the truth all desire. I have met with many that would deceive, who would be deceived, no one. Where then did they know this happy life, save where they know the truth also? For they love it also, since they would not be deceived. And when they love a happy life, which is no other than joying in the truth, then also do they love the truth, which yet they would not love, were there not some notice of it in their memory. Why then joy they not in it? Why are they not happy? Because they are more strongly taken up with other things which have more power to make them miserable, than that which they so faintly remember to make them happy. For there is yet a little light in men, let them walk, that the darkness overtake them not. But why doth truth generate hatred, and the man of thine, preaching the truth, become an enemy to them? Whereas a happy life is loved, which is nothing else but joying in the truth, unless that truth is in that kind loved, that they who love anything else would gladly have that which they love to be the truth, and because they would not be deceived, would not be convinced that they are so? Therefore do they hate the truth for that thing's sake which they loved instead of the truth. They love truth when she enlightens, they hate her when she reproves. For since they would not be deceived, and would deceive, they they love her when she discovers herself unto them, and hate her when she discovers them. When she shall so repay them, that they who would not be made manifest by her, she both against their will makes manifest, and herself becometh not manifest unto them. Thus doth the mind of man, thus blind and sick, foul and ill-favored, wish to be hidden, but that aught should be hidden from it, it wills not. But the contrary is requited it, that itself should not be hidden from the truth, but the truth is hid from it. Yet even thus miserable, it had rather joy in truths than in falsehoods. Happy then will it be, when, no distraction interposing, it shall joy in that only truth, by whom all things are true. See what a space I have gone over in my memory seeking thee, O Lord, and I have not found thee, without it. Nor have I found anything concerning thee, but what I have kept in memory, ever since I learnt thee. For since I learnt thee, I have not forgotten thee. For where I found truth, there found I my God, the truth itself, which since I learnt, I have not forgotten. Since then I learnt thee, thou residest in my memory, and there do I find thee, when I call thee to remembrance, and delight in thee. These be my holy delights, which thou hast given me in thy mercy, having regard to my poverty. But where in my memory residest thou, O Lord, where residest thou there? What manner of lodging hast thou framed for thee? What manner of sanctuary hast thou builded for thee? Thou hast given this honor to my memory, to reside in it, but in what quarter of it thou residest, that am I considering? For in thinking on thee, I pass beyond such parts of it as the beasts also have, for I found thee not there among the images of corporeal things, and I came to those parts to which I committed the affections of my mind, nor found thee there. And I entered into the very seat of my mind, which it hath in my memory, inasmuch as the mind remembers itself also, neither wert thou there, for as thou art not a corporeal image, nor the affection of a living being, as when we rejoice, condole, desire, fear, remember, forget, or the like, so neither art thou the mind itself, because thou art the Lord God of the mind, and all these are changed, but thou remainest unchangeable over all, and yet hast vouchsafed to dwell in my memory, since I learnt thee. And why seek I now in what place thereof thou dwellest, as if there were places therein? Sure I am, that in it thou dwellest, since I have remembered thee ever since I learnt thee, and there I find thee, when I call thee to remembrance. Where then did I find thee, that I might learn thee? For in my memory thou wert not, before I learned thee. Where then did I find thee, that I might learn thee, but in thee above me? Place there is none, we go backward and forward, and there is no place. Everywhere, O truth, dost thou give audience to all who ask counsel of thee, and at once answerest all, though on manifold matters they ask thy counsel. Clearly dost thou answer, though all do not clearly hear. All consult thee on what they will, though they hear not always what they will. He is thy best servant who looks not so much to hear that from thee which himself willeth, as rather to will that, which from thee he heareth. Too late loved I thee, O thou beauty of ancient days, yet ever new. Too late I loved thee. And behold, thou wert within, and I abroad, and there I searched for thee, deformed I, plunging amid those fair forms which thou hadst made. Thou wert with me, but I was not with thee. Things held me far from thee, which, unless they were in thee, were not at all. Thou calledst, and shoutedst, and burstest my deafness. Thou flashedst, shonest, and scatteredst my blindness. Thou breathedst odors, and I drew in breath and panted for thee. I tasted, and hunger and thirst. Thou touchedst me, and I burned for thy peace. When I shall with my whole self cleave to thee, I shall nowhere have sorrow or labor, and my life shall wholly live, as wholly full of thee. But now since whom thou feest, thou liftest up, because I am not full of thee I am a burden to myself. Lamentable joys strive with joyous sorrows, and on which side is the victory, I know not. Woe is me! Lord, have pity on me. My evil sorrows strive with my good joys, and on which side is the victory, I know not. Woe is me! Lord, have pity on me. Woe is me! Lo! I hide not my wounds, thou art the physician, I the sick, thou merciful, I miserable. Is not the life of man upon earth all trial? Who wishes for troubles and difficulties? Thou commandest them to be endured, not to be loved. No man loves what he endures, though he love to endure. For though he rejoices that he endures, he had rather there were nothing for him to endure. In adversity I long for prosperity, in prosperity I fear adversity. What middle place is there betwixt these two, where the life of man is not all trial? Woe to the prosperities of the world, once and again, through fear of adversity, and corruption of joy. Woe to the adversities of the world, once and again, and the third time, from the longing for prosperity, and because adversity itself is a hard thing, and lest it shatter endurance. Is not the life of man upon earth all trial, without any interval? And all my hope is nowhere but in thy exceeding great mercy. Give what thou enjoinest, and enjoin what thou wilt. Thou enjoinest us continency, and when I knew, saith one, that no man can be continent, unless God give it, this also was a part of wisdom to know whose gift she is. By continency verily are we bound up and brought back into one, whence we were dissipated into many. For too little doth he love thee, who loves any thing with thee, which he loveth not for thee. O love, whoever burnest and never consumest. O charity, my God, kindle me. Thou enjoinest continency, give me what thou enjoinest, and enjoin what thou wilt. Verily thou enjoinest me continency from the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the ambition of the world. Thou enjoinest continency from concubinage, and for wedlock itself, thou hast counselled something better than what thou hast permitted. And since thou gavest it, it was done, even before I became a dispenser of thy sacrament. But there yet live in my memory, whereof I have much spoken, the images of such things as my ill custom there fixed, which haunt me, strengthless when I am awake, but in sleep, not only so as to give pleasure, but even to obtain assent, and what is very like reality. Yea, so far prevails the illusion of the image, in my soul and in my flesh, that, when asleep, false visions persuade to that which when waking, the true cannot. Am I not then myself, O Lord my God? And yet there is so much difference betwixt myself and myself, within that moment wherein I pass from waking to sleeping, or return from sleeping to waking. Where is reason then, which, awake, resisteth such suggestions? And should the things themselves be urged on it, it remaineth unshaken. Is it clasped up with the eyes? Is it lulled asleep with the senses of the body? And whence is it that often even in sleep we resist, and mindful of our purpose, and abiding most chastely in it, yield no assent to such enticements? And yet so much difference there is, that when it happeneth otherwise, upon waking we return to peace of conscience, and by this very difference discover that we did not, what yet we be sorry that in some way it was done in us. Art thou not mighty, God Almighty, so as to heal all the diseases of my soul, and by thy more abundant grace to quench even the impure motions of my sleep? Thou wilt increase, Lord, thy gifts more and more in me, that my soul may follow me to thee, disentangled from the birdlime of concupiscence, that it rebel not against itself, and even in dreams not only not, through images of sense, commit those debasing corruptions, even to pollution of the flesh, but not even to consent unto them. For that nothing of this sort should have, over the pure affections even of a sleeper, the very least influence, not even such as a thought would restrain, to work this, not only during life, but even at my present age, is not hard for the Almighty, who art able to do above all that we ask or think. But what I yet am in this kind of my evil, have I confessed unto my good Lord, rejoicing with trembling, in that which thou hast given me, and bemoaning that wherein I am still imperfect, hoping that thou wilt perfect thy mercies in me, even to perfect peace, which my outward and inward man shall have with thee, when death shall be swallowed up in victory. There is another evil of the day, which I would were sufficient for it. For by eating and drinking we repair the daily decays of our body, until thou destroy both belly and meat, when thou shalt slay my emptiness with a wonderful fullness, and clothe this incorruptible with an eternal incorruption. But now the necessity is sweet unto me, against which sweetness I fight, that I be not taken captive, and carry on a daily war by fastings, often bringing my body into subjection, and my pains are removed by pleasure. For hunger and thirst are in a manner pains, they burn and kill like a fever, unless the medicine of nourishments come to our aid. which since it is at hand through the consolations of thy gifts, with which land, and water, and air serve our weakness, our calamity is termed gratification.